Imagine you're traveling in a new city, say New York, London, Tokyo, whatever, and all you got is this 30-year-old paper map. My bet is you'll have a really hard time getting around and getting anywhere. Well, that's exactly what it's like using traditional change management principles and methodologies to transform your organization. So change management has been around for decades, and based on the failure rates of change and transformation that we continue to see, it's clear that they don't really work. And I say, let's toss out these outdated paper maps and get on the right track and try something new. Welcome to Brave New Leaders. My name is Mark Snoekers. I'm a strategy advisor with 20 years of experience facilitating and guiding executive teams to create and implement better strategies that improve revenue and performance. And I'm the host of Brave New Leaders YouTube channel and podcast. And in today's video, I'm going to tackle the challenge of how to transform your organization so that you can actually successfully execute and implement your new strategy. And like I said before, it's time to ditch those ancient, outdated change management principles, because they are based precisely on the exact same principles that we want to change today. So instead, what we need are new principles to creating successful strategic change and strategic transformation. So here are the 5 principles of new ways to transformation. First, you should start by focusing on business outcomes and creating value instead of focusing on procedures. So hit the pause button on interventions, procedures, and processes to change people's minds and your culture, and instead focus on getting results. So any psychologist will tell you that it's easier to behave your way into new ways of thinking than to think yourself into new ways of behaving. So start with the action. Define the outcomes you want to achieve. And this could be something like becoming more customer or more employee centric and oriented. It could be about delivering more results with less input. It could be enabling the digital enterprise, increasing engagement on your team, providing better quality and at an increased speed, and so on and so on. Now, the recipe to accomplish these things is to give your teams the direction, but then also let them decide which processes and procedures are most appropriate for them for reaching their goal. So in other words, tell them what and why, or better yet, involve your team in making that decision, and then get out of the way and let them figure out how they want to reach that target. So give them the macro big picture and leave the small details, the micro implementation, to your team. Principle number 2, start small instead of doing a big bang. I know that these big bang transformations are quite popular, but one thing that I've learned is that the process of gradually improving and making progress on the change you want to see is much more effective than aiming for the one-time massive changeover and transformation. So instead of a big bang, we need to change the entire organization tomorrow kind of approach. Use an incremental and iterative approach to transformation. And the benefits of that, or of such an incremental approach, are that you can start finishing actually right from the beginning. So what I mean by that is that you deliver results faster, sooner than a big bang approach, which would only produce results further down the line once everything is done, which could be in like 1 or 2 years from now. So there's actually the theory by Malcolm Gladwell, who suggests that small incremental changes will build up and reach a point where they tip to unleash a flood of success. So focus on the most valuable things you can do. Start small, and starting small means that you can focus on little things and quick wins where you actually finish and you show results. Starting small also means that you can start by focusing on one team or one department. You do the change there, you learn what works well, and once you find what change approach works best, you scale it to the other parts of the organization. Principle number 3, invite people into the change instead of forcing them to participate. So like any other type of innovation, organizational change and innovation also follows the innovation adoption curve. So instead of concentrating on the skeptical, on the conservative people, focus on the enthusiasts and invite people interested in what you are actually offering. So go the path of least resistance, really. You will find folks who would like to change things in any organization. When these people produce provable outcomes, others will see that things change for the better and that the change is not as bad as they thought, and they will want to also engage in the change. One of my clients, for example, an owner of a medium-sized company, tried to start the transformation process with his leadership team at the company, but they weren't really interested. So finally, after some 2 years of trying to convince his colleagues on the leadership team, he'd opened up the transformation by holding a town hall meeting, and he invited everybody who wanted to participate. And that was really the beginning of a very successful transformation over a couple of years, actually. So nonetheless, as the saying goes, you need the hierarchy to break the hierarchy. So although my client's leadership team was not on board, he was convinced that it was the right thing to do. So you need that CEO or senior leader support and sponsorship of the initiative. So principle number 4 is that you need the leadership team for a successful transformation. So you start at the top and not at the bottom, as we very often hear. Right? So the fact is that most successful transformations, they don't succeed without leadership buy-in and commitment. And as I said earlier, sometimes you might need to let people go instead of trying to convince them. So in fact, several leaders who have successfully transformed and even completely reinvented companies told me that if they had to do it again, they would let people go earlier. So start at the top, but if your people are not convinced and they don't follow, they sabotage a change, then you might need to let them go, because often you waste a lot of time trying to convince them, and at the end you're still left with having to let them go, as I said earlier. So my colleague who tried for, my client actually, who tried for 2 years without any progress, some of his leaders left the company once they started the transformation. And by the way, what I always say is you don't have to agree to commit. So it's okay to disagree with a change, but when you go along with it because you have been maybe outvoted or because you are still committed to the company and you're loyal to the company or your senior leader. So start ideally with the leadership team, build their understanding of how to drive the change using human-centered approach that I've spoke about here and in other videos. Help them define their ambitions and aspirations and identify how new ways of working will actually add value. And when you implement a top-down approach, that the executive team can fully grasp actually why this transformation is required, how it works, and buy into it before you move into the other parts of the organization. So at one of my clients who wanted to do an agile transformation, I spent the first 6 months of the transformation with the executive team, educating them, working with them to establish agile ways of working within their team. So nothing actually happened throughout the organization. It was only working with the C-suite. And only after about 6 months, when the C-suite had fully grasped how this transformation is going to work, did we move to the second line, function by function, again, working with them, bringing Agile into their ways of working and into their teams, and then gradually rolling it out. So, on to my 5th point, final principle. Like always, my favorite, which I keep on repeating, is a bias towards action is more important than detailed planning. It's impossible to plan such a transformation over several years in detail right from the start. So organizational change and transformation are much too unpredictable, or there's always stuff that can happen that you didn't foresee. So instead of having these detailed plans, you need to trust that the best way forward will actually emerge with time. Now, this doesn't mean though that you should really just rely on hope, wait and see what's going to happen. So the secret instead is that you focus on developing, instead of focusing on developing big plans, you focus on the immediate next steps that you need to get going, that you need to create and actually keep momentum. So you resolve the issues in front of you, and then you take it from there. So as long as you're going in the right direction, you just take the very next step. And there's actually a framework called the systemic loop, which we can use to guide our approach and our thinking here and implementing the steps that I just mentioned. So let's take a brief look at that. So you start actually by gathering information about what's going on in your organization. So you have that change, the next step in mind, and you think about what changes are required, how prepared are people for these, what do they think about the change, are they prepared or not, and so on and so forth. Then you want to develop the hypothesis about what is actually needed as a next step to resolve these topics. So you gather the information and then you think about really what's going on, what is all these comments that I'm getting, what does it tell me about what the situation requires. Then you plan actions to address these topics, and to move the team forward. So you create experiments, right, in a sort that are safe to try, so not much harm done, small things that you can do. And when you're done, so you do these things, when you're done, you evaluate the outcomes. So these outcomes are the feedback and input for the information actually that you're gathering for the next wave of hypotheses and interventions. So here's an example. You have planned a series of workshops with leaders to work on the transformation, and you think they need to align on the top priorities. So top challenges of the transformation. So you can prioritize them before you can actually work on solutions. Now, before holding the workshop, you talk to a couple of people of the leadership team about the challenges they are facing, and this is your information gathering really. And then you notice that they are all pretty aligned and they're all talking about the 2-3 same topic. So they seem pretty aligned. So instead of having a big alignment workshop, which is not really necessary, you can shorten that and you can move right away to the working on the solutions. Here's another example. So in change, often leaders communicate once and then they move on to implementation. So let's imagine that after initial communication, you again talk to some people, or maybe you do a survey on people's opinion about the change, and you notice that they are not convinced yet. Now, in a traditional linear planned out approach, you might have planned an implementation kickoff workshop immediately following the communication as the next step. But if people are not on board yet, they will only sabotage such a workshop. So hence, now that you have gathered the information, you need another round. You know that you need another round of communication, maybe in a different format, before you can actually move to the implementation kickoff. Now, that's what I mean by an iterative approach that cannot be planned. So you can never know what's going to happen. Maybe people are committed after initial communication, maybe not. You don't know, so you need to be able to adjust to whatever is going on. And although this might sound more lengthy, at the end of the day, it will be much faster and you will actually create sustainable change because you empathized with the organization and took the time to properly involve all the people in the change and prepare them for the change that they actually have to implement. All right, CEOs, so it's time to ditch the old school hope-based strategy and embrace new ways of thinking. You're now equipped with the tools you need to implement your strategy and transformation in your organization in a more sustainable way. So remember, it's not about massive overnight change. Take a step-by-step approach and focus on what truly matters, producing outcomes and result. And with this approach, you'll not only achieve your goals, but you also leave a lasting impact in your organization and a lasting impact on the future of your organization. So thanks for joining me. And remember, like always, please like, share, and subscribe for more valuable content for ambitious CEOs like yourself who want to create and execute better strategies in a simple and fresh way. And remember, old school strategies that make the shift to better strategy. Until next time, happy strategizing. See you soon.